As I make my way through the jungle, I come upon the KUBOTA BXimus in its natural habitat. Don't disturb it.
Hey everyone, this video is going to be a very descriptive, full process of a major service on a BX series Kubota tractor. I'm going to show you step by step what you need to do for each piece of this service, and I'm going to break it down. If you look in the description section, you're going to see the times for each particular section. So if you only want to see an oil change, you can jump right to that. If you only want to see the hydraulic fluid change, you can jump right to that, and so on and so forth. But with that said, I'm going to show you everything for a 400-hour or a major service. There's a couple of major service intervals where you should be changing every fluid basically in the system and every single filter. So I'm going to show you exactly what that looks like if you're up against one of those service intervals. And like I said, if you just need to do one particular thing, I'm going to show you that too along the way. So we'll start with what you need. We'll start off with the simplest part here, I guess. We'll go with the air filter. So BXs came with two different air filter setups. It's actually the same filters, it's really the same setup, but some of them had a pre-filter and some of them had just a single stage filter. Mine came with the dual filter setup. This is your outer filter, and the part number for this, if you need it, I'm not going to read it to you because you can see it. This is your outer. There is an inner filter that sits inside of this. The outer filter needs to be changed regularly. The inner filter needs to be inspected regularly, but not necessarily changed, depending on obviously how your outer filter is doing. Mine, I just changed at 350 hours, the inner. So I'm not going to be replacing the inner. I'm just going to be doing the outer on this one. Now that said, if your tractor only came with an inner filter and you want the added protection, you can easily pick up if your tractor only came with an outer filter, you can easily buy the inner filter and add that in. If you're working in heavy dust areas, you're moving a lot of dirt with the front end loader, I really recommend having the two filters. It's, clean air, kind of important for a motor. For the fuel filters, there are two different fuel filters that are in line with each other basically on a BX, and this is a step that is often missed as part of your service requirements, and nothing will ruin your day faster than a filter that is clogged up or has water in it. That puts your beautiful machine to a dead stop. So these are very inexpensive. They're a bit of a pain to change because of the location of one of them, one being under the tractor, one being up by the motor. Part number is the same. It is the identical filter. There's just two of them in line, and I'll zoom in on your part number there. But always make sure you are replacing these. Like I said, it'll ruin your day as soon as that thing clogs up on you. It's game over, and it never dies when you don't need it. It dies when you're in the middle of a blizzard or you get a whole bunch of loom coming, or you name it. That's when you go to start it and nothing happens. For the HST, I don't want to start a Ford versus Chevy or an oil debate here, but Super UDD2 is the best option. It is not the cheapest option, it's not the only option, it is the best option. And it's best for a couple of reasons. Obviously, your transmission in a BX is incredibly expensive, right up there with the cost of a new diesel, if not a little bit more, because of the amount of work involved in changing it. SUD2, obviously not made by Kubota, but made for Kubota, is the quietest option. And in a BXs are known for a very whiny transmission, so anything you do to quiet it down is great. You have the added protection that obviously it's definitely approved by Kubota. I've stuck with it since the day one I bought my tractor when it had 1 hour on it, and now we're at 400 hours and no problems. So I do recommend going this, spend the extra 10, 20 bucks, whatever it is, compare it to the cost of a new transmission, or when you're running your tractor supply, tractor supply oil in there. Not worth the money, not worth the savings in my humble opinion. The filter for the HST, there's actually two different filters. This is the main filter, the true filter, and then you have a screen that I'm going to show you how to remove and inspect and or clean. But there's your part number for the filter you need. The screen actually is not something you will need to replace unless somehow it gets damaged. It is just it's a service item that we're going to clean up. For the oil, just sticking, I was already at the dealer, might as well get their Kubota oil. Probably not the smartest move financially, but whatever. It was there, it was convenient. So doing 1030 in that, and the oil filter is right there. There you go. Just a little guy, but it does the job. So that's really it for the intro part of it here. I'm going to show you how to get access to everything that we need. We'll take the front engine cover off first. Prop the FEL up so it's up and out of the way. Ideally, you would take the FEL off. I'm a little lazy. I'm not doing that. But I'll show you how to get to everything, and then step by step what you need to do to service every part of the major service interval. All right, so once you pop the hood open, you're going to find there's two different little screws that you're going to want to unscrew. You don't have to remove them completely, but just loosen them up quite a bit because we're going to want some play in there. On both sides. And then we will close the hood, or almost close the hood, so I can show you the next part and how to latch that hood so you can get the front of this thing off without it smashing into the lights. So obviously with the cab on here, it's a little bit different, but same principle here. I was able, when I built my cab, I wanted to make sure I could get to my hood release, so we did that. What you'll see and this has changed over the years, it's a different style, but on mine it's a little plastic tab here that pulls out, and it hooks right onto the hood release prop, and that leaves the hood at just in the right angle that allows you to bring the front cover off without interfering with anything, and I'll show you what that looks like right now. So you'll see once that's latched on that little hook, you got this at just the right angle that we're going to be able to yank this thing right out. Once you get it to this point, you release that little plastic hook. And you can pull the whole front end of the tractor right off. So just a general overview here. Hats off to the engineers. They really made this super easy to work on. You got everything you need right at your fingertips here. You're going to see the second of the two fuel filters right there. Above that is your bleed screw. So once we change those filters, you'll see that we'll be able to bleed the air from the lines right there before it goes into the injector pump. Over on the other side, got our oil filter right in there. Oil fill up top, right there. Very easy to crack this bottom radiator hose and drain that. We're going to flush the coolant as well, although I don't think I'm going to video that. I mean, we're really just going to crack this open, drain it, and refill. But I like to exchange that basically every 5 years or so. For me, it seems fine. And that's it, and then the rest of the fun is going to be under the machine. So I think what we'll do here is we're going to start off with the oil change, and we'll take you through that right now. All right, so I've let the tractor warm up a little bit here, and I've got a 14 millimeter socket. And we'll start draining. All right, so once you get the plug off, go ahead up top. And you can either open the filler cap, or we can just pull the dipstick out a little bit to let her get some air. Go around this side, and we'll just open this. And then she really starts flowing. So for the oil filter side, we're going to use a 65 millimeter oil filter wrench. Alright, so now we're on to the HST fluid, the hydraulic fluid. And you can do this with a tractor on the ground, but it's much easier if you can just get the butt of the tractor up about 7 or 8 inches, so you can slide your drain pan under and still have room to work under the rear axle. So the main drain is a 27 millimeter bolt, basically. And we're gonna start by getting that off. And you'll notice the HST filter is just above this, right in line almost with the drain plug. Jeez, that fluid still looks great. That fluid's got 100 hours on it, and it is still in beautiful shape. Unbelievable. Wow. So there's quite a bit of fluid in here. I honestly don't remember how much is in here, but it's quite a few quarts. So we'll let that do its thing. Okay, so that's the majority of the fluid's drained out now. We're going to back this filter off. And if you're doing this for the first time, the factory really torques these filters on, and you are going to need a filter wrench to get it off the first time. As you see, once you've done it and you've not over torqued the filter, it'll come off very easily by hand. But just a FYI for any of you that are doing this the first time, you are going to need a tool because they jam that thing on so tight. And also, if you've got these skid plates like this, this is a factory skid plate, but not all of the Kubotas have that option. I don't remember, came out at one of the, I think the 60 series was the first to get that. It's a fan shroud protector, basically. It's going to look like you have to remove it, but you don't. As you see, is just enough clearance to drop the filter without having to remove that bracket. Alright, so that's doing its thing. I'm going to let these guys finish dripping because my drain pan, I don't think, is deep enough to handle 3 spots leaking at the same time. So we'll let this drain out, and then we'll go to that screen filter in the back corner. Alright, so for the HST screen filter, it's on your back left-hand side. I'm going to zoom in here and see if I can get you the best possible angle here. What you see there, if I can get a little better focus, okay. What you see there is this little bolt here, which is a 12 millimeter. We're going to throw a wrench on that. Get in your home. There we go. A little bit of dirt in there. And back that guy off. And that's connected to a little lever that basically keeps the screen filter pressed into place. So you remove that bolt. Well, these threads are forever. And you'll see, zoom back out here, all it is just a little piece of steel that presses the filter into the housing. So you take that whole piece out, and then this sometimes can be fun, as it's probably going to be in there pretty good. Just kind of wiggle it and try to pull outward towards the tire. And mine is seized up pretty good, so let me go grab something to pry that out with. Alright, so just going to use a flathead screwdriver and a little hammer. We're going to wedge, zoom in a little bit more. I'm going to put the flathead right under the outer lip here. And very gently, tappy tap tap. There she is. Yeah, I was not getting that off with my hands. So this screen hasn't been cleaned in 200 hours. So I'm very curious to see what it looks like. Check that famous Kubota quality after 200 pretty hard hours. Where's my camera? There's my camera. Look at that screen. Few little shavings. Actually, you know what? Let's bring this up to the bench and get a closer look. Alright, this is incredible. There's just a few little shavings here and there. Nothing bigger than, not even a millimeter. I mean, just little tiny dots. This is probably the worst section right there. And you know what? I'm gonna have to go back and look at my service records. This may not have been pulled out since 100 hours. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look at my service records, but either way, there's at least 200 hours on the screen. And there's nothing. Virtually nothing. Kubota builds a nice machine. Alright, so what we're going to do is just clean this up. I'm actually going to dry it with a cloth, and then I'm going to use a magnet to pull off any shavings that aren't aluminum. So yeah, let's do that. And you're going to want to be pretty gentle with this, obviously. It's a very fine mesh. It does have an inner spring that keeps it supported so it doesn't collapse, but still just be gentle. Definitely want to inspect your O-ring, because if this thing goes, you're losing all your fluid. Just to get to it, because it's right down there with the drain plug in terms of elevation and the hydraulic system. So just want to make sure that O-ring isn't dried up, cracking, or anything like that. Okay. Last step here, I think we'll just shoot it with some air. So if you notice, I'm not blowing into it, I'm blowing just over it. Because obviously you don't want to be driving those shards back into the filter. You want to be kind of shooting them off the top. So just be careful with that. Good as new. That goes back in just like it went out. Except backwards. Give it a little tap, tap, tap back in. And the torque specs on this bolt is just a half a grunt followed by an eh. So we'll do perfect. So trying to fill these transmissions with just a regular funnel is like pissing in the wind. It's in a horrible spot. This is obviously your fill plug. So what I've done is I've created and patented this little beautiful piece of plastic that can be yours now for one easy payment of $19.99, and I'll include a free bottle of Flex Seal. So make yourself up a little snake. This is Jake the snake, to refill, because otherwise this is a real pain. Oh no, Jake the snake has a crack. I made Jake the snake many years ago. And would you look at that? If it's not one thing, it's another. Freaking give me a break. But you're going to fill it up till you get to the top of this crosshatch section. Can't say that word. And do keep an eye on this over time. The maintenance intervals on the HST are really extended, so that means even more so you got to make sure you're checking it on a pretty regular basis. Also making sure you're checking it on flat ground. If the tractor's tipped up, you're going to read over full. If the tractor's nose down, it's going to look like it's empty. So not a lot of room here, as you see in the crosshatch section, so make sure your machine's level and check it regularly. So that's it. So we're going to get this thing refilled, and the HST portion of the video is all set, and we will then move on to the fuel filter changes. Alright, so now we're on to the fuel filters, and we'll start with the most difficult one, which is under the tractor, almost centered about 2 feet before the wheels. You'll see your first fuel filter is right here, and that's held in by a little bracket with a 10mm on it, and then that line feeds into your gravity pump here, and this just gives the injector pump a low amount of pressure, a couple of pounds maybe, to pull a steady feed from. So the easiest way to do this is to take off that 10mm nut just to free up the first filter, and then you'll see there's some split loom tubing over the fuel line, so we're going to pull that back and out of the way a little bit in order to make you a nice space for you to grab some, if you've got good hose clamps, use that. I'm just going to use vice grips for this, and we're going to vice grip it down to stop any fuel from coming out. Ideally, you want to make sure that you've run your tank down about as low as it can comfortably get before you even get into this. It just makes it a lot less pressure on, actually I grabbed the wrong pliers. Makes for a lot less pressure on this hose clamp. Alright, so instead of the needle nose, it makes sense to use a regular pair of pliers here, and we just back that, slide that clip back and twist off the filter. And we'll let, there's a little bit of fuel obviously in the lines here. We'll let that kind of keep that from draining out. And we'll get to the other fuel clip. Come on, do your thing. And we'll try to gently twist this off. Probably would have been smarter to put a little bucket into this, but I'm not that smart. Alright, so there's the new filter. I took my little Sharpie here, and there's an arrow. It's really hard to see, but there's an arrow that does indicate which way it's supposed to flow. So the skinnier end basically is upstream from the other end. So let's get this one back on. Alright, there we go. Now we'll just re-secure this. Alright, back one is done. And now we'll do the front one, which is a whole lot easier than this nightmare. So for the front, same thing. We're going to actually, we're going to take advantage of that bracket right now while it's holding everything, and we'll just back off the spring clamps on both sides. And remember that I left that other clamp on the line down the bottom, so we're not going to have much fuel up here. There's one. And now we'll back that bracket off. There's two. the new one right on. Reattach the clamps and throw the bracket back on. And I'm going to release the pair of vice grips I have that's holding the fuel line and keeping fuel from flowing. And the next step is crucial. So we need to bleed the air out of the lines that feed the injection pump. And we need, I forget what size socket for that. Is that a 10? Yeah, that's a 10 too. So all I'm going to do with this, first of all, is make sure it's in frame, which it isn't. This guy right here. So right where that fuel line comes in, that's your bleed screw. I'm going to crack this thing open. Not going to open it wide, just crack it. And then on the tractor, throw the keys to the ignition, and you're going to turn it to that first position where you hear the fuel pump clicking. And there we go. You can see once you got a nice steady flow of fuel out of there, you know you got the air purged. I'm going to crank that down nice and tight again. And that's all there is to bleeding the fuel system. So now I had drained the cooling system just off the bottom radiator hose, just broke that free and let it pour out. And the refill procedure is just like any car or anything else. I'm going to fill this guy up. And then we're going to let it run and let it run that coolant through the system. And I also have a heater inside the cab on this, so I've got longer lines that it's going to need to make its way all the way through that. And we just watch the level and top it off until we get to that full hot mark up at the top there. And that's really all there is to that. All right, now onto the air filter. Just going to pull these two tabs back, kind of unhook them here. And the cover slides right off. And then we've got the outer filter. And then there's the inner filter. And again, as I talked about at the beginning, you may only have the outer, that's okay. But I do recommend you run the inner. As you can see, hopefully, there is some dirt on this inner filter that obviously got past the outer one. There's a good line of it right there. Actually, I might order a new filter too. But if there's any evidence for running two filters, there it is right there. There are things that get picked up by this inner filter, and obviously any particulates that you can get out of that air supply, just going to make your engine last that much longer, keep your compression that much higher. So definitely recommend that. What we're going to do though is slide this guy back in, and I'm going to bring over my air line. And with that filter in place, I'm going to blow all around it to clean out the air box itself and the filter in the center. It'll actually knock some of the stuff off that filter, but it'll also prevent anything from going inside the engine while we're doing that. Same thing with the cover and the drain, which usually gets covered in crap. Now we'll just slide our new one on. Press that into place. And the cover just drops right back in. Just make sure that your drain is down towards the bottom and facing backwards. Not up, because we all know which way crap rolls. Gotta go down. So the final remaining fluid is the front differential. And what we're going to do is take this thing down off the lift, because I want to make sure that that front diff is sitting perfectly level from left to right. Otherwise your measurements are off when you use the dipstick. It's got to sit perfectly flat. So I'm going to take it down off the jack stands now and get that diff sitting on the level ground, and we'll drain and refill that fluid as well. What I didn't show you is while I still had it high in the air, I actually drained these, and you'll see two drain plugs at the very bottom front of each spindle. So you just crack those open or pull them out and let that fluid drain out. Now what comes with these from the factory is UDT in the front end. I disagree with that. It's a general gearbox differential style. I end up going with a gear oil, and it's a little bit thicker, which is actually good when you see how the seals for these spindles actually work. You really need a thicker oil than the UDT. UDT will be fine, don't get me wrong, but you're much more prone to having problems with leakage with UDT. If you switch over to a real diff gear oil, it just makes more sense. So I do have a video on how to repair those spindles when they do leak inevitably, so you can check that out as well. Maybe I'll put that in the description too. But we're gonna refill here with gear oil. Alright, so the fill plug is over here on the left hand side. Pop that guy out, and we'll be refilling with this. While I'm filling this here, there's actually 3 spots you need to fill. The main case, and then at the top of each spindle, you see that little nut there? You remove that, and that fills up this piece of the drive line that drops down. It will fill from here, and you can just fill from here if you want, but then you're going to want to definitely take your machine for, for a little drive there, maybe 10 minutes or so, come back, refill again, because it's going to work its way down there ever so slowly. It's thick oil. So your other option is, if you just want to do it in one shot, back off each one of those on each side of the spindle and fill it in those 3, and this, and the other side. Okay, so on the dipstick for this, you want it right at that ridge. As you can see, I'm about 1/8 of an inch below that ridge, which is actually where I want it, because I'm not popping this all the way in when I'm checking it. So that 1/8 of an inch that you see difference is all the way to the top once I bash that thing in the hole. And that's really it. And again, once you do this, even if you do it by filling all 3 holes, I strongly recommend you go back after 10 hours of use and double check it again. It's amazing how much more oil these take once you start really running them. That oil level will drop quite a bit. So please just double check those so you're not running that thing dry. And with that said, I believe that's gonna do it. We have changed every oil, every filter on a machine. If this is your first time doing this service, I would probably plan on spending about 3.5 hours doing it. If you've been doing it for a while or you've done parts of it, honestly, I get this done in less than maybe 1.5 hours to maybe 2 hours. And I don't know what the fee is at a dealership to have it done, but I'm guessing it's not cheap. They're getting you for at least a couple hours of labor alone. So really nothing too tricky there. Hopefully this video helps some of you that are on the fence about doing the service to your BX yourself. All the BX lines are very, very similar, if not identical. This is an 1860, but it literally has the exact same transmission that they put in the entire series of BXs, the same hydraulic pumps, same fuel filters, same everything. So yeah, again, hope this video helps. If you like stuff like this and it did help you, please hit the like and subscribe button. I very much would appreciate it. Feel free to check out any of the other videos that I will be populating around my finger, and the subscribe button, if you'd like to, is right there. Thanks everybody, have a great day.